We're very honoured here at IMG Fashion to be hosting the first ever Australian Fashion Chamber Symposium, an opportunity for you to be really asking the questions that you need of the people who are going to be representing you into the future. IMG Fashion has a long-standing relationship with people like the British Fashion Council, the Council of Fashion Designers of America and the CNMI. And it's these groups of people that come together to make sure that you as an industry have a great voice out there 12 months of the year. We're thrilled to not only have the establishment of the industry professionals that are coming together that are volunteering all of their time on your behalf, but also to be hosting this so that you can ask the questions that you require. I'd like to invite Edwina McCann to get up in a moment and just explain exactly how this all came about. She is not only the founder of the Australian Fashion Chamber, but also the editor-in-chief of Australian Vogue. We'll be introducing you to the board of directors shortly after that, both those that are on stage, those that are in the audience, and those that cannot be with us today. And you'll be able to ask some questions and make suggestions of the troubles that you're having within this industry at this time. So I'd like to invite Edwina now to come up and explain everything.
So firstly, I'd like to thank Jared personally and also IMG. They've been so welcoming of this initiative, and they've really given us an example of how we can all come together and contribute to a brighter future for Australian fashion. It's a great example of how all our various festivals and weeks such as this week's and various organisations can actually collaborate if we want to affect positive change. So it's with great excitement that I introduce you to our board members here and also board members in the front row. We have a list of our founding members and the initial board, which are available on our website if you want to read through all the names. I won't go through everyone right now. Why was the Chamber founded? Well, I think all of us understand that our industry is going through a period of immense change. There's a number of reasons. Obviously, we're a global industry now, and things have changed dramatically in the past 10 years. We've seen a lot of businesses go out of business, and this has really saddened me. I don't think that we want to see that to continue to happen. So that's what the Chamber is about, essentially. It's about nurturing and promoting your brands, both here and overseas. Now, the Chamber has been set up with a constitution which will allow its members to vote the board. So the board that you see before you today has been chosen for their various skills. Many of them are really about sort of finance and understanding how to put a board together and how a board should be run. But also because this is a not-for-profit organisation, these people were all passionate and willing to volunteer their skills and their time. And it's a big ask. Now, I know some of you are going to disagree with some people on the board and wonder why other people aren't on the board, and we're more than willing to accept those questions. But I'd rather that today didn't become about that, because today is really about engaging with you and finding out what your problems are. We need to engage with government at a local and federal level for funding. We haven't successfully, done this as an industry in the past. But we can't set strategic objectives and get moving if we don't understand what your problems are. So today is about having this is an open forum, and about inviting you to tell us on our Facebook page what your problems are and how we might best move forward so that we can engage with government and with other areas of industry to make sure that we have the best skill sets sitting on the board to represent you in the future. There will be more board members to be announced, mostly in areas of law and governance. We feel we have a few weak spots there. Each person who's sitting on the board at the moment brings a unique set of skills, and they will hopefully head up subcommittees, and we'll be coming to you asking for your help to head up these subcommittees in areas of expertise such as manufacturing, etc. We're very, very pleased that we have engaged with the textile industry of Australia. I'm sorry if I've said that incorrectly, and how accepting that they have been of us. We're also very proud that AMP Capital have come on board as the founding partner, I suppose. The Chamber couldn't really exist without them. They're developing 3 new shopping centres, one in Sydney and in Queensland, and they really feel that they want to support the future of our industry, and I thank them for that because the Chamber simply couldn't exist without their support. Also to Tony and Guy and to M-Label for coming on board initially and having belief that we could create something like the BFC and the CFDA. So I went to New York and I met with Stephen from the CFDA. The CFDA have been incredibly generous. They've given us everything from business plans to I guess the structure of their award system, how it all works, so that we can really follow in their footsteps. We're officially endorsed by the British Fashion Council and the CFDA as Australia's version of them, I suppose. Myself and Kelly, I think, feel that Bazaar and Vogue were really at the forefront of the creation of the CFDA in America, hence why we're both sitting here today. So I guess that's probably enough from me for now. I'd like to open it up and start asking you what your questions, problems are. We know we're probably going to get some curly questions and we're prepared for it. So please, ask away. I hope it's not a room full of quiet people. Obviously, mentoring has been part of the huge success of the CFDA and something that we will be providing as an organisation. I suppose to date there really hasn't been. It's been about designers reaching out individually, and I know, for example, Josh Goot has a great relationship with the guys at Scanlon and Theodore, but those relationships have really been up to the designers to develop. We would hope to not only provide mentoring in terms of design and some of our great talents such as Brianna Wolf, who've come home in terms of, I guess, staging a show, but also most importantly in the areas of finance. We have big visions to try to engage with some MBA programs, for example, and see if we can find some synergies between designers and people studying MBAs to get business people involved with business. Initially, we will have a membership program that won't charge anyone who's not turning over $5 million to be a member of the Chamber. They will be able to access on a very fair level our mentorship program, and I think it's going to be about engaging the correct board member and, I guess, sub-skill set that each designer requires, business dependent. I mean, it's a big job, but I think that it's going to have to be done on an individual case-by-case basis, depending on what their needs are. Obviously, in terms of representing these brands internationally, I would very much like to see something like, Americans in Paris, which you would be very familiar with, this type of showrooms. I know I was recently in Paris. I went to 6 or 7 different very small Australian designer showrooms. I think that's just crazy. But also I agree that we need to do a lot more mentoring in terms of explaining how you show ready-to-wear and a commercial collection sitting together on a rack. That's a weak spot that I see with Australian designers attempting to sell overseas. Now, I may not be the best person to explain that to them, and we may be calling on people like you, actually, to help us in that regard. But yes, each one will be, I guess, dependent upon what's required. There'll also be seminars, I should say, too. So guest speaking seminars, we'll be reaching out within the Vogue family. I know Kelly will do the same within Bazaar, to try to bring people to Australia to talk to, designers and in sort of lecture sessions like this, but also one-on-one. My view is that there'll be multiple subcommittees in different areas. So in the areas of buying, obviously media, finance, that will be calling on different people for different things. And so it's about really making that connection between the designer and what's required in terms of a subcommittee. The various people sitting on the board, I think, will need to be tapping a lot of shoulders and asking for a lot of favours. We have some wonderful people such as Brianna Wolf, who have already put their hand up and have agreed to donate 20 hours of their time. So, it's just about deciding whom that is best paired with, for example. Certainly, I know, one of your colleagues, Ken Downing over at Neiman Marcus, has already sort of volunteered to be a judge on our awards or perhaps mentor when possible. So, yeah, we've had some great, and obviously Franca Sozzani's agreed to be our international ambassador. That's very helpful for a number of reasons. So, yes, it'll just depend. But mentoring, I think, is going to be the strength of this chamber.
Beautiful. And I know Franca Sozzani is a big advocate for more environmentally and socially responsible fashion as well. And I'd like to know, is there any consideration in your work when it comes to that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that's, if you don't have an industry body, especially a volunteer one in a not-for-profit organisation, it's very hard to galvanise all these different sort of initiatives, and certainly ethical fashion will be very much, part of what we're here to promote and also support. Certainly the health initiative as well. There's been a lot of talk about that this week, and we need a body that can answer and represent our industry the way the CFDA does in the US. So yes, these these are all things that we will take on board. We've only had one board meeting to date, and certainly, you know, if that's what's coming out of these forums, then that becomes one of our strategic objectives and, you know, can certainly be part of our, I guess, mission statement, if you like.
Great, thank you.
Oh, there must be more.
Will the Chamber be providing help and guidance to Aussie designers to help improve manufacturing standards?
Absolutely. What came out of our first board meeting was the area of manufacturing is a big concern. From what I understand is that because, and I'm not an expert obviously in this area, not being a designer, but that the manufacturing industry in Australia has shrunk, pretty much disappeared very, very quickly, but that a lot of designers can't access affordable Chinese manufacturing because they can't afford to create the units that are required to, you know, to work with those factories. I know that Franca Sozzani really is attempting to promote the Italian manufacturing industry, which is struggling as well. So we're hoping there might be some synergies there between, you know, where we can set up some synergies between Italian manufacturers as well and Australian designers. But really, I think we're going to have to engage with federal and state government to work out how we can, you know, best support you, because I do understand that there's a huge pricing issue with Australian designers, and that the strong dollar, you know, certainly didn't help that. Add to, you know, couple that with, especially when we're talking about export, how far we are from, you know, the rest of the world, just in terms of freight and duties. You know, you've got some major issues to contend with. But certainly manufacturing will be, you know, a big focus, and we would be taking advice.
Good morning. My name is Ellen Whippy and I run Fiji Fashion Week. And just some points that you made there. I'd just like to say very quickly, we've had a lot of support from IMG Australia. We invited them to Fiji Fashion Week last year to come and see what we're doing. It's our 7th year. But we've always established the Fiji Fashion Council in 2010 to be able to help develop the industry, because it's such a new thing in Fiji. And as far as the Fiji government's concerned, it's all about pretty girls walking up and down in pretty dresses. And we wanted to explain
There's
to them,
a lot of people who just see it that
absolutely,
way.
Absolutely.
Fashiontainment, yeah.
That's right. And so we wanted to
we like
show
them too.
That's right. You know, that there is a major back end to this whole thing about the garment coming out on the catwalk. And secondly, because we do have a very strong garment manufacturing industry in Fiji. So point one is that our Fashion Council's role was to help develop the industry while I actually ran Fiji Fashion Week. In that, I invited a lot of Australian designers, Australian industry experts to come and conduct fashion workshops and seminars. People as far as coming out of the UK, we had to fund that ourselves. But because we don't have a fashion design school, we ran a lot of seminars and workshops for the emerging designers and the established designers, you know, what we call established designers. That has really and truly helped our local designers. We now have been successful in starting fashion and design at our the equivalent of the TAFE College here, but also to the designers who are looking for smaller runs. Fiji specialises in small runs, and you know, one of the things we're very famous for is our garment manufacturing industry. I don't know if you know, but Scanlon and Theodore have been producing in Fiji for the last 2 years. And
I had no idea.
Yes, okay, well, a certain amount of their production is done by Mark Hallaby. The second person, of course, is Kukai, who all of their garments are produced in Fiji. So we definitely have the potential to do small runs. I unfortunately have run out of business cards, but...
oh, we'll track you down, don't worry.
M. Waite, of course, from IMG, she and Louise Island came last year. They've got our details, so please ask her, and I'm quite happy to help any of the designers who want to produce in Fiji.
Well, thank you for standing up, and it's... this is exactly why we need this organisation, to make those connections, and so that people such as yourself feel that they have the place to go, to, you know, where to put this information. We've got 2 international editors of Vogue here at the moment, or 3 actually, and one of them said to me, oh, Australian fashion is really having a renaissance, isn't it? It's really, you know, on people's radar, and you think, well, gosh, that's the outside perception, and yet here, we're just reading negative stories all the time. Now, I've been the journalist on the newspaper, and the negative stories get up in terms of the conference. But I agree that, I guess to date there hasn't been people to come to get positive commentary about what is going on and the success stories, and that will definitely be part of our role to sing the success. But I guess that's the thing. It's like where I'm happy to start hosing all that down, and I apologise if it came off with a negative sort of tinge. I suppose I was just addressing something that has been in the media a lot and has been, I guess, what we've been reading and hearing.
I think what it is, Ed, is, as I'm a former newspaper journalist as well, I think you, especially, am I working? Can you hear me? I think too with the headlines with Maya and David Jones, which have basically been in the papers non-stop for 5 years, and I think what happens when I've spoken to designers as well, consumer confidence is affected when they open the paper and it's all about our major retailers going under, or that they're being taken over or they're merging. I think the announcement yesterday was seeing consumer confidence rise. I think we'll see consumer confidence rise. I think the share market has reacted really positively to it. So I think when Ed and I were talking about this, I think we don't want to be negative, but I mean, we love the Australian fashion industry. I think, I love what we do here. I think we have a unique voice, and this is about making it even stronger. And as you said, dampening that negativity, that talk syndrome. Let's go out and shout to the world that we're fantastic and we have incredible designers down here. You good?
Does anyone else want to say anything?
I can say something, but I'm probably the oldest one here. Been in the fashion business for the longest time. But I remember back in the day, and Carla will remember this. Carla will remember in the day when we used to have the FIA. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean that you were old, Carla. We've been in the business for a long time. It started at a very young age, we both did. But we used to have the FIA, the Fashion Industries of Australia, and it was just the most amazing group of people, and everyone in the fashion business and the shoe business and everyone all pulled together. There was never any negativity. Everybody helped each other. And it was one organization which I see this, emulating and becoming the new version of this, because you've got a lot of challenges today that we didn't have in those days. I mean, selling internationally was not heard of in that sort of group of designers. You have that challenge, you have the internet, you have e-commerce, you have all of those things to contend with. But it's just a matter of everybody being together and everybody pulling their weight and helping everybody else. I mean, it's not about being from Vogue or being from Harper's Bazaar or being from another designer's house. We all just have to have that thought that we are here to help each other and to make the industry a success. I mean, I think from my perspective, we had the highs when there was Carla and Peter Weiss and all those. Most of you in here won't remember. You'll remember Carla, but some of the designers I might mention, you might not. Carla's still here. You might not remember them, but it was just a whole group of people that were very successful in Australia and supported by Australians, because that's all we knew. We didn't have Prada, we didn't have Chanel, we didn't have Louis Vuitton, we didn't have any of those things. I mean, as a fashion editor in those days, I used to take my own jewelry on a fashion shoot in my little red Toyota station wagon to a location, and that was it. There were no vans. But we made great pictures and we made great fashion in those days. So it's just a matter of forgetting about all those things that you think you need, but just digging down and getting what comes from your gut. I think that's the most important thing for the whole industry, media, designers, retailers, whatever. So, thank you, Carla.
I'm just going to introduce everyone.
Could I respond
I'm just going to quickly introduce everyone
sorry.
that's actually up on stage here for those that are unaware. But obviously we've got Nikki Zimmerman up here, who last night won the Australian Fashion Laureate, so congratulations. Leanne Whitehouse, representing private education. Alice Kemp, the director at AMP. Karen Webster from Public Education. Obviously, everyone knows Nancy Pilcher, who also, I must say, was the first person to actually stand up when Australian Fashion Week was created 19 years ago and lend the support. So it's thanks to people like Nancy that this actually happened. And of course, Kelly and Edwina. Also in the audience, we've got Alison Vaness from 10 Magazine. We have Melissa Grace from the Australian Wool Board. We have Glenn Slaborn from Tiffany, Carla Zampatti, Corinne Upton-Baker, and Cara Hurry. So they're all available for questions as well. Unable to join us today is Anthony Kendall and Malcolm Caffrey, who all joined the board as well on the Australian Fashion Chamber. So let's take some more questions, and you feel free to direct them to absolutely anybody up here.
Could I respond to Carla and to the audience and to say that in private education we're absolutely open to any of your needs, and as Edwina said earlier, at our first meeting we discussed the need for marrying to an MBA or marrying to the importance of financing collections, and certainly if you have any specific needs that you think education is not addressing, we're very open to hearing and putting into action any of your needs. So it could be production, it could be design, it could be staging and runway work. So we have a whole variety of courses, from unaccredited courses through to degrees through to masters, that at some point we can initiate what you need back into our courses. So please keep in touch.
Actually, it has been on my agenda for quite some years. Retailing training. I don't think, and merchandising, I don't think we do that really well. When I go to other places, I think now that we have an invasion of overseas brands and they are giving us an example of what good retailing is, I think we have to brush up what we've been doing and become much, much stronger in this area. And education has done a brilliant job with design. You really, both of you have done unbelievable. In fact, more than two of you, of course, have done really well. But I think retailing, I'm not aware of anyone. It's still not regarded as a job. It's still people who are not sure what else they will do who work in retail, and they are so important, and retail is fun, it's showbiz, and it makes all the difference. The other thing I would like to ask Edwina and Kelly is, how can you celebrate Australian designers in your magazines? Because they are glossy, they are beautiful, but I don't think there's enough presence of Australian designers in there.
I'm wearing Alex Perry today. Listen, I agree, Carla, and see, I became editor of Harper's Bazaar. When did you leave? 2 years ago. Sorry. And I have been working hard with my team to do more Australian fashion. I have quite a brilliant fashion director who is very good at mixing luxury and Australian fashion. So it's very much on our agenda, but I think we can do more. I really do think we can do more, and I think it basically is up to us, because we are the editors. We work with our teams quite closely, but I have made a conscious effort of profiling Australian designers much more in the magazine, and I was very dismayed last year when some of my closest friends' businesses had to close, or they had to, some of them lost their businesses, and very talented people, and I think the industry will miss them. And that's why I really do think, and when I've had conversations with them, it's like they need support. They need, people to see their clothing and to see that, you can, wear a Chanel shoe and an Alex Perry dress, and, it is about mixing it up. Ed, do you want to?
Look, I mean, I agree, and just so you all know, Brianna Wolf has already given me an hour-long lecture about this. So it's very much on my agenda, and Christine's as well. Obviously, we run businesses too, and that has, certain pressures on them, but we all acknowledge that we're not supporting the industry and our designers as much as we should. I would say, kind of on the flip side of that, I think that there's been almost a rush to support emerging designers sometimes, and sometimes we have probably promoted them beyond where the business is capable of going, so sort of built them up into superstars before they've actually got the capacity to manufacture enough clothes and deliver. And so that's where we need to be behind the scenes as well, working with them to make sure that they've got access to things like overdrafts and all sorts of things behind their businesses to make sure that the designers we are promoting can also make the most of the column inches and pages that we dedicate.
I think one of the other things that came up in our board meeting too was that we actually have some brands that have been around for 10, 15, 20 years that still need support. Like, it's not just about an emerging fashion industry. It's also about supporting those really talented designers that have established businesses but need to take it to the next level.
Hello everyone, so great to be here, and I really want to congratulate everybody on the initiative, because what's become evident to me is that we have a disparate industry where we've actually had an issue around how we communicate what we're actually capable of doing. I'm interested with Nancy talk about the FIA, because the FIA, which has now become the TFIA, the Council of Textile Fashion Industries Australia, still exists. And we've got the CEO, Kiri Daly, here with us today. So what we've got is still an industry body that's been around for 70 years. I'm very fortunate to sit on that board. But the issue is that we're the quiet achievers behind the scenes, working with government, working with manufacturing, working with industry, working with the issues around unions and manufacturing, which is a whole nother, Pandora's box to open. Equally, things like merchandising. I know at RMIT we have an exceptionally successful merchandising program where, we've got 6 applicants for every place. It does really, really well. But maybe we haven't been good enough at communicating that out into the world. We also have a master's program for business, for fashion, so it's like an MBA, but of course people don't necessarily know about these things. So how do we start to actually bring everything together so we know what's available? And I think that's exactly what this body has to do. It has to be the conduit, the connector. It has to provide a foundation so that anyone in this audience can say, this is what we need, because we probably already have it. We just haven't been great at actually standing on a pedestal and promoting it.
And I think that's the point about having membership. I mean, the website, that's really, I think, what it is going to be all about. That by becoming a member of the Chamber, you have access to all this information, and that we will connect with you on a personal level to make sure, if you have specific questions that we haven't answered on the website or haven't provided enough information about, that we're able to, make sure that we're making the most of the institutions and opportunities that are already out there.
Alicia Kemp from AMP. I just wanted to say that it's really important for us to be involved just in terms of big business and connecting with the smaller designers. Carla's absolutely right. We see people all the time that come to lease shops or be in our shopping centres that really don't understand their retail businesses. So I think this is a way that we can assist as well as a large corporation, just in helping grow those people and not really letting them be unsuccessful in their first 2 years in business. So that's why we're on board, and we're very proud to be on board as well. So thank you.
Can you hear me? Okay. A couple of comments on your points. Edwina, you'd mentioned representing more Australian designers in your editorial, and of course within Harbours as well. I think we can all improve on aligning between retail and editorial, especially because it's a global market now. I mean, we see it at Net-a-Porter, but there's also more progress we can make if we get feedback from you on the particular designers that you're hearing for an international scale, and then align accordingly also in then helping the designers learn about merchandising and building it up in a way that it's a global united front more than it has been thus far. So
I would agree. I mean, I think that would be, I think because in Australia we've kind of had traditionally 2 department stores that have sort of been at war with one another. There hasn't been this sense, I think, of, collaboration and, working perhaps more openly with with retailers. So yeah, our view is we don't care where the clothes are sold. We don't care if the girl's buying it in Paris or buying it in London or buying it in Melbourne. You know, as long as they're buying an Australian designer and know about those designers, then we've done our job. So yeah, don't worry, we'll be knocking.
Good. Because ultimately
bossing maybe.
Yeah, exactly. It's very exciting to see the talent and of course be able to communicate with the designers. I've had a few conversations this week with them on how getting into bed with a major retailer is a big step, and a launch it's very important for it to happen properly the first time, and the knowledge to be there on their side going into it. And if that's aligned with when you're championing them editorially, it will build a strong foundation, and of course the rising tide raises all ships. So it's something I can see being a strong potential, but it's based on communication, of course. And also regarding your point on the public education and where there is infrastructure within educating designers, I think that's very important, but also there's an extracurricular side. For the 5 applicants who don't get in and who don't have that access, it's just building in a balance between a relationship-based conversation as well as an outreach to younger designers who want feedback from buyers, from merchandisers, from production experts, and letting them know that there's a large body of buyers that are very keen to build a business, but it takes interest from us as well as, you know, getting a reach out from them.
So we've got some designers in the room. It might be appropriate if any one of them wants to ask some questions of the panel that is about to represent them.
Currently right now, we're facing this like threat protection for an email to ESBER from China trying to buy from Hong Kong. Would the chamber be a place that we go to legally protect the brand internationally? And
absolutely. So we've, I think it's Arts Law. Cara's really good on this. We've got pro bono legal services that have helped us set up the constitution of the chamber. We'll have a representative from that organisation on our board, and we would hope that that representative could assist us in connecting you, potentially with some lovely lawyers who might like to do something pro bono for you to help out there. But yes, absolutely. We would hope that the chamber is the place that you come with that question, saying how, and we would say, well, how can we help?
Okay, we've got about 10 minutes left before we actually have the first show of the day. So, Adam.
I'd just like to start by saying, I don't think we can not acknowledge Simon Locke for the amazing work he did with Fashion Week, and also IMG, which has taken it on. The one thing I do notice each Fashion Week is there's some amazing shows, amazing production, amazing hair and makeup, styling. How do we, as an industry, get together and actually mentor some of these young designers who maybe sometimes shouldn't show, or maybe should be encouraged to work with more experienced people within the industry to produce better shows? Because I have to say, I won't say quite often here, but we do hear people come out of shows and go, oh my goodness, I can't believe they did that. So how do we produce better shows? How do we encourage these young designers to work with people who understand how to produce shows? From the stylists, the hair and makeup artists, producers.
There he is.
It wasn't what we were going to be coming here to discuss today, but why not? Look, there are some great designers out here, and we have the luxury of working on events like this in multiple markets around the world, and it's these first steps in their own backyard where designers should be seeing support from the industry to put their arms around them and help them to have the trading wheels experience of what showing is like. It's very different to retailing. It's very different to putting your collection together when you're showing it in your studio, and we are here to help with creating connections. If you've got designers out there that you would like to connect with, more experienced producers, more experienced stylists, you have a great depth of talent here, especially if you look in your local magazines. All of the teams working on those are able to work with designers as they're putting their collections together. It's sad that there's people coming out of shows going, oh, they shouldn't have done that. This is meant to be an encouraging time when everyone comes together under the one roof and really puts our best foot forward. I think this week has been incredible. We've seen some incredible young talent who have been doing some wonderful shows. You know, this is only his 3rd season, and that was an incredible collection. He's come a long way from just showing season after season. Maybe we could ask one of the designers what more support they need.
I must say, just a part of the Tiffany & Co. Designer Award, that this year we actually introduced some filmers work pro bono. She's actually going to style JAYSON lookbook. So it's us doing things like that with young designers that need, and I think they found, didn't they, Glenn, there's one of the, how much cash did you give them? 10,000 plus us was actually a really, really fantastic prize, and I think that's what we have to do more of, that we can't work in little isolated pods, and that, again, it's all about being united.
I should have probably mentioned that part of the Chamber is also going to assist in numerous awards, so in any way that the Chamber would, could be involved, whether it is the judging criteria or actually nominating judges for different awards. So we are working with the Australian Fashion Foundation, which is obviously the internship program that Malcolm has very cleverly set up. We're already working with the BT Award. I know, Kelly's obviously already working with the National Designer Award sponsored by Tiffany. So I think, we would hope that we come under, we kind of sit as an umbrella, as the CFDA do, across all these awards. It's not one against another. We're kind of here to support everyone.
I think the mentoring program is, though, absolutely vital for what Adam's talking about. If any of these designers had access to experts in the field to come in and actually help critique their collections, help curate their collections before they go on stage, and actually also direct them to some of the more appropriate people for styling, music, production, because when you're starting out, you actually don't know, who is going to be the most appropriate for your own ethos. But I think there's enough expertise not only on the board, but also what will complement the Chamber with subcommittees, etc., that we can always put people in touch with the right ones. So I think making access and making connections through that mentoring program is going to be vital.
And look, there is a lot of that going on already behind the scenes. There's many designers, Mark Fasalo, Christine, Nikki, they're all already mentoring designers on a very regular basis. If we can just see more of that, we're just going to see even more success. And I think there's the topic for your first forum.
Absolutely. And I even think we had an idea, and I think maybe it should be more open to the whole Chamber, of asking designers to come in and kind of curate what they would want to show us for each season, because I know our market editors might see everything, but I certainly don't. Yep. So maybe it is about making it more time effective as well, for people like us to be able to be kind of presented in a smaller space of time.
We have a great program running in another country where editors actually do studio stops to some of the emerging designers, not just around Fashion Week. It's actually something they do on a regular basis, and it's orchestrated, and they really do grow from this, and that's something that we could probably,
I know it's American Vogue, does it? Before the show?
There's many that do it, there are a lot. We actually have one country where the editor of Vogue actually sits in the room prior to the show going on, and they actually do a full dress rehearsal just for the editor. It's actually quite an amazing picture when you see a full show going on with one lady sitting in the room.
We could do that. We could do
Hello. How are you? My name is Mario Luca. I'm from JAYSON, so thank you for the mention there. I think I can speak on... Oh, hello. On behalf of all designers here, I mean, it's great, good and well to say, do a better show or whatever, but one thing that has, I guess, not been acknowledged is the funding to get a better stylist, to get great hair and makeup, to even be a part of this event. We don't have a spare 50 grand in our back pocket to put on an amazing show, so I think there should be some initiative or some support from the likes of IMG as well to select talented designers like the Fashion Council in the UK, for example, where it's a curated selection process, so you're putting forward your best designers opposed to whoever can get the sponsorship or the money, and that way will be a stronger industry and a stronger Fashion Week from not only a local perspective but a global perspective as well. I mean, there's so many, I guess, hurdles that we all face as emerging designers and established designers, and the biggest thing being, funding. So to do events like this, although on one side you look at it going, oh great, it's going to grow my profile, but then again, how does that translate into sales? So yeah, I just wanted to make that point about the funding side of things. If there was a, not to say, oh, here's money to do a show, but why don't you get invited to do a show, whereas, you know, your collection is good enough to be sitting against all these other designers globally as well. That's, I mean, just from a designer perspective, something like that would be a huge helping hand. So, and then we can do better shows if we've got great, you know, great stylists on board, great hair and makeup people on board, production people on board. All those things cost money, unfortunately, and it's whether you're going to pay the rent or buy fabric, or, you know, you have to weigh it up at the end of the day. So.
I think the British Fashion Council, which we're engaging with very closely, and, you know, I'd like to also acknowledge certainly Simon Locke and the incredible work he's done, but also Graham Lucy from the Virgin Australia Melbourne Fashion Festival. They've also really engaged with us. They have a very close relationship as well with the BFC, and I think if you look at things like the Topshop space that we've both seen in London, and the designers who have emerged having shown their first up, you know, from that space have been quite incredible. So yes, it will, part of, you know, our charter, if you like, will be, I guess, trying to bring together more big corporates like AMP, who've come on board immediately, to perhaps provide those spaces where we can invite designers and then help them put the best show on they possibly can.
Hi, my name's Louise. I'm the Designer Relations Manager at IMG. Given that it is Fashion Week, one issue that's top of my mind is a problem we often have with larger brands like Bulgari hosting an event which clashes with a designer's independent show. Is that something that you can help us to manage?
Oh, look, I think they have 200 international guests here, and the event that they're hosting, obviously they chose the date. It was chosen internationally. I suppose, you know, in future, yes, the CFDA do manage a schedule, I guess, for New York Fashion Week, as IMG work in association with the CFDA. So I suppose that, you know, could happen in the future.
We actually work together to make sure something like that doesn't happen. You know, and this has actually been a very disappointing element to this week, because we were told a different date. And that event is now taking place, and it is clashing with a couple of designers that is very, very, very important to our schedule. And obviously they're not only just doing a dinner, they're actually having a show.
I suppose in future, you know, the Chamber's not existed for very long. certainly when I received that, when that date was set, or I was sent that invitation, you know, we did raise it, that it was this week. But essentially, yes, they are a client, and, you know, Kelly and I run businesses, and we're very aware of that, and, you know, it's part of our responsibility. You know, if we don't have clients, we can't publish magazines. So.
The issue with young designers, I mean, they don't have advertising budgets. But I just want to ask one other question. You mentioned, you referenced Graham Lucy and Simon Locke, and of course, Simon is on the BOF Fashion 500. Simon is on the BOF Fashion 500 and was the first recipient of the Australian Fashion Laureate, and even Carla acknowledged him in her talk on Sunday. But, I mean, why are Graham and Simon not actually involved in the Chamber?
They are involved, and they're certainly being engaged with. Why they're not sitting on the board, I suppose, might be the question. We had legal advice that it would be a conflict of interest for somebody from VA MFF to sit on our board. Obviously, at the moment, where we are, you know, we have been raising sponsorship funds to get this off the ground. I would hope once we can engage with government that perhaps we'll get government funding and therefore won't need to chase sponsorship, because I feel that there's enough competitors, and for us to be truly independent, we will require, you know, government support. In terms of Simon, and I feel I can say this because I've had the conversation with him, I felt quite strongly that if we were to put a fresh face forward, that it needed, for now, just for now, while we were trying to, you know, get meetings with federal government, which we've done very successfully, that if Simon was there being such a public person and so well known, and he said so much over such a long period of time about Australian fashion, but has also run a company that essentially had a commercial interest in promoting Australian fashion, that it might just sound like more of the same, and that was my fear. So for now, that's why he's not here, but that's not...
Everyone has commercial businesses, and I mean, if you're talking about a conflict of interest, the VA...
I can say quite safe, I don't make much money out of Australian fashion in my business.
But I mean, if you're talking about why the Melbourne Fashion Festival, I mean, that's a not-for-profit organisation. Sure, they obviously take money, as I've been told, take money for design, but so does AMP Capital, I mean, in terms of rent, so... I think some people are confused why those
I know,
people
but
aren't
it purely,
involved.
I guess it purely goes back to over time. There's been a lot of unfair criticism. I agree. I mean, I've did some of it at Simon, and I do just feel that I know I've sat in those newspaper conference rooms, and you know, I know that to them it just sounds like, oh, well, here we go again. What's new about this? If it's the same face, and that doesn't mean that I'm the right face either. For now, that's worked really well, and we have been very effective in setting up these meetings with federal government. So far, it appears to have worked. However, as I've made clear to Simon, there are still seats, on the board that are available, and if the membership, if we can get, more people to sign up, because obviously, we need members for the chamber to exist, and if the members felt very strongly that he should be on the board, well then, he will be.
You touched on Topshop just before. One of the areas of the industry that I think is severely overlooked is the Australian High Street. Every time I open a magazine, it's all about the British High Street, and I know they have the funding behind them, but is that part of your charter to support the independent labels?
I've been asked this question quite a lot, and I think, look, we can't close the gates. The high street's coming. It's just a reality of the global economy we're living in. And it's really driven by the consumers. The consumers want it, and they want it at that price. I suppose where I see a positive is, when I'm meeting the design director of H&M, and I said to her, well, can you see an Australian collaboration? And obviously they've done amazing collaborations in the past. The Chamber, I will lobby H&M to make sure that we have an Australian collaboration, and that designer will, through the power of H&M, not only, I think, get incredible experience working with their design team, but also, be made potentially a household name globally. So I understand the negative impact on Australian designers of the high street kind of invasion, if you like, but there's also a positive side to it.
I suppose there's already an industry in Australia, though, because we were overlooked for so long by the internationals. There are labels that have opened in that market space who don't have the funding or the cash flow behind them to be able to promote themselves the same way the high street can. So, we have labels in that market space already that have flourished while we've been overlooked. And I suppose, how do we then protect that going forward so that we don't just get flooded by H&M, Topshop, ASOS?
I think that's kind of up to us as well to make sure that it's brilliant. If things are good, people will buy it, and they'll be in the magazine. If we can put up an Australian designer and say this dress is as fabulous as, for example, this Prada one, it's going to get shot and it's going to get promoted. So I guess, we did have a closed industry here for a long time, and I guess there were a lot of designers who were fulfilling the role that the high street had played in the UK. Unfortunately, that probably just can't go on anymore because they are here and they're here to stay. So really, it's about, and part of our, I guess, mission statement is about promoting originality and, promoting Australian design, but from a design perspective, which is, by its nature, means, I guess, originality.
Okay, unfortunately we have a show that is going to be starting very shortly, so we're going to have to wrap this up. Maybe there's time for one more question. I think you... Yeah.
Hi, good morning. My name's Alison. I work for Trovo, which is an online aggregator. I'm wondering if digital marketing is a part of your mission statement. I talk to a lot of PR brands like Adams and Australian designers, and often they don't know what I'm talking about when I say data feed or digital marketing or affiliates. I work for an affiliate, and I love to look after Australian designers and brands, but they're just not sort of capable yet of doing it, whereas we work with big internationals like Net-a-Porter and Sasha, and they're all over it. So I'd love to do more with them, but they're not digitally capable, and I feel like there's a big piece in education and getting Australian brands sort of up to speed with what's going on globally.
Well, I think we couldn't agree more. I mean, I know in the space of 2 years how much I've learnt about digital marketing and, the power of digital and the power of social and how to use it. So certainly, I will be knocking on your door as well. I think a lot of digital marketing agencies are very expensive. They've been able to, the industry has kind of driven the price up, and so it's probably been inaccessible for a lot of designers. And that's where, again, we're going to be asking for people to, donate their skills and time.
Just on that, I am it's still on. There are some Australian networks who are looking at self-service digital platforms, which to enable brands to create product feeds, to work with Google, to work with people like Trovo, to work with all sorts of places. So it's on the digital radar as well.
I think that one of the key reasons this chamber needs to exist is in 10 years' time, excuse me, our industry is going to be completely different. And we are really on the brink of change. And, you know, just responding to the last question before you and maybe melding the two together, 85% of our industry is small business, micro businesses. Small business being defined at less than 20 employees, but the bulk of the fashion industry in Australia has under 10 employees. So we've actually got a distinction from other industries around the world in that we actually have lots of smaller independents, which is in sharp contrast to the large chains that are entering the market. So what we've got to do is actually say we've got this polarisation in our industry and we've got to promote both. The consumer's shifting, they're actually buying both. They're putting an H&M top with a designer piece. So how do we actually capture that? And I agree with you. Certainly in education, we are actually engaging in that digital interface from marketing, retail, production. There's the rise of the micro manufacturer, which is going to be massive into the next 10 years. So I think that this is one of the reasons people are going to need knowledge and information, and that's going to enable Australian designers to actually be able to promote themselves on a global stage, because we're almost moving back to a bespoke way of working, but using digital interface, so it's a whole new world order.
Yeah, and from our experience so far in the last 3 days, we can tell you there's a lot of appetite out there. We've had over 140 countries so far tuning into the live stream of what we've been showing here, so it's great to see that internationally, even in a different time zone, they're still logging on and they're either watching us live or on video on demand, and we'll be releasing a number of new other figures when this event is all over. But it's exciting to see that so many people want to know about what's going on down here. And on the digital face, we've actually got a campaign that's about to be launched, and I'm going to invite Anthony Lowler, who's going to come up now and tell you a little bit about what the Australian Fashion Chamber is going to be doing in that space short term.
Maybe real quick, is that working? So I'm here just to introduce the initial two social media strategies for the AFC. Obviously, social media in fashion is enormous, and partly due to that is because of the influencers who do support it. Here in Australia, the biggest influencers are pretty much everyone in this room here today, so it really is important that we all try and get behind this. Australian Faces of Fashion is the first initiative for the AFC in terms of the social media engagement, and how you can support this is by taking behind-the-scene photographs of people who work in the industry and support that with a short little story of who they are. This will help us promote a engagement within the community and also help showcase the Australian talent of what we have here. On our Facebook page, the AFC Facebook page, there's also a AFC discussion forum, which is a platform which enables us to continue the conversations that we had here today. There's a lot of conversations and points that haven't been resolved or have a continued requirement to continue. We can basically, the board of directors from time to time will get together to curate and come up with new discussion topics to initiate a dialogue, and we really are hoping that this will be a pivotal point where people can engage and be inspired to join the conversation, because it is something that the industry has never had before. We speak about the opportunities that are missed or what we need to workshop on. This is a platform and a forum where we can join in and have an online perspective. You don't have to be standing up in front of everyone like I am here, because it's not what I like. But it gives you the opportunity to do that. Essentially, any industry is only as strong as it's supported, so it really is fundamental for us to support it. For more information, you can just jump on the AFC website and the Facebook page, which is A Fashion Chamber, and you can get more information on there. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And for those who are going to the Alice McCall show, she celebrates 10 years. It's going to be starting very shortly. Thank you.